Hey everyone, Dr. Keith here. Thanks for tuning in for this webinar. We hope you get a lot out of this webinar. This is kind of the webinar version of our intro talk. So you're just going to learn a lot about chiropractic, how it can benefit your life, some very simple things about chiropractic. Since this is a webinar, obviously a recorded webinar, it's not interactive, but if you have any questions, feel free to email us, go on our website, you might find some more information, or contact us on Facebook. Or just stop by the office, give us a call. We'll be happy to answer any of your questions or schedule you an appointment. So one of the main concepts in chiropractic that separates us is that we feel that the body is self-healing and self-regulating, and there's tons of information to support that. And it's really vital that you keep that in mind throughout this presentation and in fact throughout the rest of your life. One example I always give to people is that when you were developing in your mother's womb, there wasn't anyone in there, any surgeon or anybody else kind of putting you together. Your body knew what to do, how to put itself together. And this is important to understand that your body still does that. Your body is always striving to be the best that it can every second of your life. So it's always striving for health. We often use the excuse of aging for a lot of things. We have a couple just quick slides in here about it, because we don't really want that to be an excuse. Certainly, aging is a factor in everybody's lives, and as we age, things can break down a little more, but we don't want to use that as an excuse. Humans can live quite a long time, about 120 years, and like I said, we will age a little bit, but we don't want to use that as an excuse. Particularly, we don't want to use it as an excuse for arthritis, degeneration, things like that. Remember that all the joints in your body are the same age. So one might hurt more than the other, and it's not necessarily due to your age. It's more to do with other lifestyle choices, what you've done, what you haven't done. Another concept we talk a lot about is allostasis or allostatic load. This kind of falls back to even this past couple slides. What this concept talks about is you think about it as like a cup or a bucket, and as we fill it up with more and more things, there's just more stress adding to it. And so that's an important concept, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in this presentation and in a couple other ones that you'll be able to watch. So we can break that down into a couple things. So we have toxic things and pure things. So toxic things would be things that our body doesn't need. Pure things are things that our body does need. So we can break it down into toxicity and efficiency and purity and sufficiency. Now, things that are pure and sufficient are things that are going to be required for our cells and for our body. So we need an appropriate nerve flow. We need real food. We need real nutrients. We need movement patterns that are really good for humans. We need rest. We need an appropriate thought process. And we need appropriate energy levels. You can make this list much bigger, but these are a lot of things that we kind of focus on in the office. Now, in the office, people always are focused on their symptoms, and symptoms aren't necessarily a good or a bad thing. What they are just signals. And so they're there to give you information on what's going on, and it's not necessarily good to suppress them all the time. Certainly, we don't want to be in pain or whatever kind of symptom we're talking about. But we don't want to just suppress it and have the problem still exist. We want to make sure we're focusing on giving our bodies things that are pure and sufficient so it can build back up. Also important to note that you can heal from anything. There's no matter what disease you've been labeled with or someone you love has been labeled with, what symptoms you have, there's always been someone that has overcome that and returned to health. And they've overcome this in a variety of different ways. And because your body's always striving to get to that healthy level, and once we start giving it more and more of what we actually need, then it does that even quicker. Within chiropractic, we really focus on the nervous system part. Sometimes we'll talk about it as the BrainBody Connection. And these are just a couple charts here that you can see, just giving you some little information on some of the basic things that the nervous system is kind of attributed to. So as you can see on the left, we're looking at the autonomic nervous system. Some people call it the automatic nervous system, but this is really involved in different glands, different organs, and it kind of just automatically works if it's functioning optimally. On the right, it's kind of hard to see here, but we also have one of these in the office that you can look at, and it kind of breaks it down to different levels of the spine and where those nerves kind of go. So, as I said, sometimes we just call it the brain-body connection. And a lot of times people think that chiropractic is for old people or if you're in a lot of pain, and it can help old people, it can help people in pain, but it's more about optimal function. And that's why you'll see in our office a variety of people with a variety of conditions. Some people will have the standard things that they think of like neck pain, back pain, migraines, but all kinds of other things. We see a lot of kids in the office with ADD, ADHD, you know, even younger kids with bedwetting, colic, allergies. We can see emotional problems. Sometimes there's addiction and depression in all ages. Certainly anxieties and learning disabilities, and poor mobility and posture are also obviously a part of it. What we really want to focus on is not specifically the symptom, but we want to always be focusing on giving the body what it needs so it can heal properly. Because that's really what chiropractic is about. It's not about treating the symptom, it's about improving the function. So something we'll talk about a lot in the office, and we'll just go briefly into it, is the term subluxation or vertebral subluxation complex. Really, this just means something that's not functioning optimally in your spine, causing some type of neurological compromise. And that's really all you have to understand about it at this point. But this is the main thing that we're checking for. The main thing we're checking for is to make sure that there is no subluxation in the spine. So when there are subluxation in the spine, versus when there's not, we can have different signals sent. So proprioception and mechanoreception are moving appropriately when the spine is moving appropriately. And these are different positive signals sent to the brain. They have all kinds of different functions, and it starts by working in your cerebellum, and then it kind of expands to the rest of your brain. But nociception is the thing that we're concerned of when the subluxation is present. And so when this is present, you're going to have a lot of basically negative signals. So N is for negative. The one previous was proprioception, P for positive. It's a simple way to remember it. And like I said, sometimes we just call it the brain-body connection. Sometimes we'll call it chiropractic. And we're just looking for whether or not there's subluxation or not. And this is three main causes, either physical, chemical, or emotional causes. So as you can see, some really simple ways to understand it from a physical standpoint are, in our society today, especially sitting. And all ages are sitting way too much. We see it in kids, we see it in adults. We see poor posture both when we're sitting, when we're not sitting, poor movement patterns. If you look at like a 2-year-old child squat versus even a 10-year-old child, they're going to do it differently, and the 2-year-old is almost always doing it more appropriately. Certainly there's going to be falls and trauma and things like that. That are going to attribute to this too, but even the modern birth process, if you can YouTube it, I'm not going to show it to you now, but you can YouTube C-sections or vacuum extractions, and just how much pressure is pulled on the head, and even sometimes during vaginal births, there's a lot of pulling onto the neck and head. So from a chemical standpoint, there's all kinds of things that can add stress to the body. It can be a poor diet, could be pollution, could be certain medications, and drugs can even cause that. And even from an emotional standpoint, when you get really stressed out, you just feel tight, you just feel not right, and that it all works within the system that we're talking about. One of the simple things we always comment is that not going to the chiropractor regularly is like not going to the dentist regularly. We all go to the dentist regularly to make sure our teeth are clean and functioning optimally. We want to make sure that we're visiting a chiropractor regularly, and that's going to be slightly different for everybody, but we want to figure out what that is for you, and then keep you on that schedule so you can live an amazing life. So we use a couple different technologies in the office, and this is one of the main ones that we use. Our version is called the MyoVision, but we also it's called basically a surface EMG, and this is kind of an example that you can see on the screen. The left is what we were not wanting, but right is what we're looking for. We want more balance, and in this one it's color coded, so green is more what we're looking for. And what's awesome about this is even if you don't have some crazy pain or some other symptoms, we can check in, just see how that system's working, because sometimes you may not be at that symptomatic level, but things might not be working appropriately. And we can do this on kids, adults, and to be honest, sometimes kids have way more problems going on. The good thing about that is they're usually easier to fix. We also utilize X-rays in the office. This is just an example here. Just gives us an idea of what's going on. We can see how everything's kind of positioned in the spine. Gives us some great information on how to kind of care for you. As we kind of hinted to, chiropractic is really for everybody. It's for the infant to elderly. All can have benefits, and everybody needs to be checked. And you want to make sure you're getting checked regularly. You'll often hear us talk a lot about getting checked, because there's no way of knowing if you need care unless we check you. And the only way to do that is to check you routinely. This is a quote I often have in a lot of my presentations, and it's, "Life is amazing, but to experience an amazing life, we must experience health." If you have any other questions about this, like I said, feel free to email us, give us a call, anything. We'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Go ahead and make an appointment and get checked, get scanned if you haven't been scanned in a long time, or if you've never been scanned, or if your kids have never been scanned. Go ahead, bring them in the office, and we'll scan them, and we'll see if chiropractic if they need it right now. I'm Dr. Keith, and I hope you really enjoyed this presentation. Choose to be amazing.